I'm going to go ahead and incorporate this all at once.
We're going to do this at high speed, right?
Not high speed. Now you can tell why we're going to go back down to speed 1 this time. And I'm even going to pulse it because I don't want to really get in too fast. I don't want to make a mess. I'm also consciously trying to find a way to make sure I don't really mix as well. So I'm just trying to mix it together. It does mention on the recipe to fold it, and you could do that by hand. But the idea here is I'm just trying to do it by machine, because if I'm making a large batch of this, and I mean large, like, you know, if you're making enough for, let's say, 150, 200 people, and you're making a lot of these, well, you're going to be using a bigger mixer. Chances are folding is out of the question. So, you know, learn to control your machinery, and you can get really good results even with a mixer. Now, if you're making a small batch like this at home, if you consider 100 cookies a small batch, this is just right amount. I mean, think about it. You're making Christmas cookies, right? It's not just for you, right?
Cool.
Right? Well, at least I would hope
I'll be
not.
very happy tomorrow.
When I make these, I usually make, like, I go back home. If I go back for Christmas, I'll be going back to my mother's place this year for Christmas, and I'll make like a triple batch. You know, and there'll be like 300, 350 of these, and everybody just sits there and snacks on them all day. They just love these things. You know? So, again, scrape down. I'm finding flour and things around. I'm just going to kind of take a look and see if I have any flour trapped at the bottom, any pieces of fat, anything like that that hasn't been fully incorporated. At this point, that's where I can fold it by hand a little bit if I need to. If I was using a big mixer, or worse yet, if I was using the 60-quart mixer, I would probably then go and use the big scraper that we have on that machine, but I would also go and still scrape down and double check everything, and then I would just turn the machine on and pulse it a few more times to make sure any last bits of fat got mixed in. That way, it's going to make sure that nothing is, nothing like that's on the scraper ends up in one cookie. That could be kind of, you know, disastrous for one cookie. So we're going to make sure that we get it all incorporated. Now I'm just going to set this aside, and we're going to start to get these cookies on the sheet pan. If you've never used a piping bag before, let me show you a little bit about piping bags. These are disposable piping bags. You have a cloth one in your kit. The cloth one, if you decide to use it, is cloth impregnated with vinyl. Okay? And in order to get this tip to fit correctly, you would have to trim it. So you actually have to trim off your cloth one to get it to be just a good tight fit. The idea here is you want about 1/3 of this tip sticking out of your bag. You don't want to have any more than that, because if it's up at about 1/2 or 3/4 of the way, a good hard squeeze can pop your tip right out of the end. And with a cloth bag, once you cut it, it's cut, right? So you kind of have to, you want to be conservative on your cut, on how much you cut. That's one of the reasons I use disposables, because disposables, you don't have to clean them, you don't have to dry them. They run me about 35 cents a piece to buy them, and they're very reasonable, convenient. I'm just going to go ahead and cut off a little piece here. I always cut it off somewhere where I know where it's at, because I don't want that to be inside one of my cookies either. Okay, that happens occasionally. And when you work with a piping bag, start it by turning it inside out, about halfway down. So you kind of fold it over your hand so that you have a place to hold the bag. So basically I turn it up inside out halfway. And basically my hand goes up in there and is able to control the opening. When I go to put my tip in, I'll slide that down. You can see that it's just sticking out enough so that the teeth are completely visible on the start tip. If you don't have the teeth completely visible, what will happen is the bag will cover up part of those, and it will impede the flow of your material. What you get is you won't get the full star effect out of your tip. You'll get a little bit of the star effect, but it'll be muted because of the plastic getting in the way. So make sure that you at least have enough sticking out so that the star tip can do its work. Let's load the bag. Loading it's also fun. If you've never done this before, take some material, take some product, put it in the bag, and I use my hand to squeeze and clean off my tool. Now I'm not going to put a lot in this bag because this is thick stuff. And if you try to squeeze all that, you're going to end up with some very tired arms by the end of the afternoon, end of the evening. Even this much is a lot to put in the bag, you know, even for you guys, okay? If it becomes so much, if it's so much that when you're squeezing it, you're shaking because you're working so hard, then think about maybe choking up on your material. Taking some out or squeeze it off a little earlier so you get better leverage and you don't have to squeeze so much. And this is especially important especially for ladies who have not quite as much hand and arm strength. This really gives you a lot better leverage. And you get much better performance if you've got leverage. So
you twisted it?
Yep,
Like,
I twist it off. And what I do is I put the twist right in my webbing between my thumb and forefinger, and I use my whole hand to squeeze. So when I squeeze, it comes right out of the end. I've seen people use piping bags all kinds of fun ways, okay? I've seen them do this, where they're holding onto it like this, and they're squeezing with their fingertips. I'm telling you, your fingertips are not anywhere near as strong as your full hand is. If you do it like that, what you're going to find is you're going to get terrible pain up here in your upper forearm, because you're trying to force the leverage your whole finger to do that job, what your whole hand could be doing. So I use my whole hand. I twist it off, and I use the whole hand to actually squeeze. That way I get good smooth flow of material. I also get better leverage, and it's relaxing. I don't have to spend all day with a sore arm or having to pop Advil in the evening because I've been piping so much. And I've had times when I've piped 10, 12 sheet pans of these, and I can move on to other jobs, and my arm isn't even tired yet. So that's actually kind of a good thing. So we go to pipe feeds. Let me move this thing out of the way so you guys can see what's going on. We're going to pipe in a rosette. And you've probably heard of a rosette. And what you'll see is I just hold it like this. I hold it on a slight angle so I can see what I'm doing. I also hold it about 1/4 inch above the surface. And I like to use my other hand as a guide hand myself, because I do shake a little bit occasionally. But I like to just hold it there. It's just a little guide hand. And I'm going to go around, make a tight little circle, and cut it right off. Now all I'm doing here is I'm going around, squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. I stop squeezing as soon as I get around to the other side, and I just move it off to the side, and it cuts it off. One of you commented how sharp your tip is. I forget who it was, but somebody, you mentioned how sharp it is. It's sharp because it cuts it right off. It cuts off that material very quick and easy. And cuts it off because it is sharp. So I'm going to start, I like to start personally about 3 o'clock on the clock. And I go around until I get back to about 4, and then I just push off to the side. And you'll notice how they're all the same size. That's what I'm shooting for, is that consistency. If you run out of material, just bring the rest on down, twist it off, and ready to go again. Round we go.
And these won't stick on the parchment?
They generally, I find that when you first put the piping tip down, I'll squeeze so I intentionally get that material to stick, because otherwise it won't stick to the parchment very much. The reason why is because there's so much fat in this, and it doesn't like to stick to much of anything. It'll stick to your fingers, but it won't stick to the parchment. So once it's stuck, then you can go around in a circle, and it won't move on you. Now, of course, you may run into problems with this. A lot of people do, where they will won't let it stick. They'll go around real quick. Well, that won't work. But you'll see how they lift every so often. Lifting up can be a problem, because if you lift up, it can pull. It can pull away and leave a tail. Also, if you don't stop squeezing at the end of the circle, it will leave a tail. So let's say I just keep going, and I forget to squeeze. I forgot to stop squeezing. Oh God, you know. So you end up with cookies with a tail, and with a tail, they just don't have quite the same appearance. Let's put some more product in the bag here.